These three players may be surprising at fall camp, and it's huge for Syracuse.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we are talking about three Syracuse football players who are surprising at fall camp in positive ways. The three players are Michael Johnson Jr., potential backup quarterback and QB1 of the future? Maybe. There's also a true freshman that's really standing out in Marcellus Barnes on defense. And is Zeed Haynes the number one wide receiver on this team for this upcoming season, which is only 12 days away. So tons to look forward to on today's podcast. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So let's go over the first surprise of this fall camp for Syracuse, and that is the play of Michael Johnson Jr. Now, Michael Johnson Jr. is a 6'3", 215-pound quarterback or weapon, because he was listed as a weapon when he transferred over to Syracuse. He is a redshirt senior with hopefully 2 years of eligibility left, including this upcoming season, which is only, once again, 12 days away. He was a 3-star FAU transfer, and he is also the son of co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach Michael Johnson. So here's the precursor to this one for Syracuse. Obviously, it's a battle for who is going to be the backup quarterback on this team for next year. We know Kyle McCord, right? We know Kyle McCord's the starter, and we also know who the really good players are on this team for next year. Like Kyle McCord, we know is really good. We know Rondé Gadsden's good, and Marlo Wax is a standout on defense. You get the idea, right? Fidel Diggs, even though he's underrated by a lot. We know who's really good. These are about surprises. And with Michael Johnson Jr., he has only thrown one career pass in his entire college career, and that came last season at FAU. And full disclosure, he's 0 for 1, but one pass attempt. It could have been 1 for 1 for 75 yards and a touchdown. I wouldn't have really cared all that much. But he's 0 for 1. That's all. So when Syracuse got him in the transfer portal, I'll be completely honest with you all. I wasn't like gung-ho, yay, what a great move that Syracuse just made. This is our backup quarterback for next season. But right now, according to those who are at the fall camp, he is really, really impressing, and he could be in line to be the quarterback too, behind Kyle McCord for this upcoming season. Now, the first 6 weeks of camp, he's split time between being a quarterback and a wide receiver. Once again, he's considered a weapon. That's what he was when he transferred over to the Orange. If you look at like his Twitter profile or when Syracuse Football actually posted it, it said in the position description that he is a weapon, which I've never even seen before. Has anyone ever seen that? If you've ever seen that, leave a comment below. A player being listed as a weapon. I've never seen that. So obviously, the fact that he's only completed, or not even completed, he's only attempted one pass, I am pleasantly surprised that he could be the backup quarterback for this upcoming season. And now I'm going to get to you the main reason why I'm happy about this. Because the other quarterbacks in the race are Carlos Del Rio Wilson, who's now going on to his third year with Syracuse as the backup potentially, and Jakari Williams, who is a 3-star or 4-star quarterback prospect, true freshman, depending on the service that you look at, the recruiting service. I've never been someone who's wanting to usually play true freshmen in football. typically I err on the side of caution. Obviously, the coaching staff would know better than I am. And we also know what Carlos Del Rio Wilson is. This isn't me piling on him. I'm just going to give you his numbers, okay? He's played 14 career games. All of them have been for Syracuse. If you recall, he was a Florida Gator transfer, actually. In 14 career games, he's thrown just about 100 passes. So not a huge sample, but like good enough of a – like there's something there, 100 passes in 14 games. He's completed less than 50% of them. He's thrown 4 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. This was the guy who was in line, or at least at the beginning of fall camp, in my mind, the favorite to be the backup quarterback behind Kyle McCord. And I've said on the podcast that I am concerned about the backup quarterback spot because, well, first of all, you need a good backup in case something actually does happen. You don't want anything to happen to the starter. We don't wish anything bad on Kyle McCord, but you do need an insurance policy, right? You buy insurance not hoping that something bad happens. You buy insurance because, well, in case something does happen, it's a plan. So you need a good backup quarterback. That's the first reason. And second of all, I'm also traumatized. Okay, I'm a New York Jets fan. Full disclosure, I'm a New York Jets fan. Aaron Rodgers goes down in 4 plays. The backup quarterback options were Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. Obviously, the fact that they won 7 games out of that is a miracle. So I'm traumatized. I was concerned about the backup quarterback, but I'm less so now because if Michael Johnson Jr., and albeit he's only attempted 1 career pass, if he's beating out an experienced backup quarterback already in Carlos Del Rio Wilson, what does that say about Michael Johnson Jr.? What does that say about him? For starters, the Captain Obvious quote is that the coaching staff is telling you that he's better than Carlos Del Rio Wilson, which means by default, Syracuse has upgraded the backup quarterback position. Once again, we're going over the 3 surprises so far at fall camp, and all are positive surprises, and one of which we're talking about right now, is transfer from FAU Michael Johnson Jr. being in line to potentially be the backup quarterback for this upcoming season, beating out Carlos Del Rio Wilson and beating out a good quarterback prospect in Jakari Williams. Now, so if you've covered that portion, right, you get the idea that Syracuse may have upgraded their backup quarterback position after all. They may have upgraded it. This is also what got me, because I'm credit to Emily Leiker for this. Johnson is also a candidate to be the quarterback 1 in 2025. That's right. Michael Johnson Jr. might be the quarterback 1 for this team in a couple years. 1 year, but not this upcoming season, right? Kyle McCord is obviously going to be here for 1 year, and then he's out. For those that may not know, this is his final year of eligibility, so he can't be back. It's nothing to do with the transfer portal or anything like that. He's out of years of eligibility after this season. So they're going to be looking for another quarterback. They could go in-house like a Jakari Williams, but they also can go in-house for Michael Johnson Jr., maybe. So what I would do if he's really in consideration to be a quarterback 1 for 2025, assuming that Syracuse football is in a bowl game, and trust me, I'm picking them to be in a bowl game at 8-4. They're going to be in a bowl game. I would play Michael Johnson Jr. as the starter in that one. Just see how he looks in the bowl game. It's not going to tell you everything, but you'll be able to learn more about him if he's playing in that bowl game, if he's starting, than you would Kyle McCord, because Kyle McCord's out the door. Now, Kyle McCord might want to play because maybe he wants to boost his NFL draft stock, or maybe there's some sort of reason behind it. But assuming that Syracuse is in a bowl game, they're not in the college football playoff, I would start Michael Johnson Jr. if you're seriously considering him as the quarterback 1 for 2025. But overall, I'm really pleasantly surprised that Michael Johnson Jr. may in fact be the backup quarterback for this team, because it means that Syracuse has upgraded at backup quarterback, with Carlos Del Rio Wilson also being an upgrade as a 3rd-string quarterback. So we do have insurance policies in the event that something does happen to Kyle McCord, and we don't wish that ever. We don't wish injury or anything to anyone. We hope that Kyle McCord can play this entire season. But anyways, that's it for Michael Johnson Jr. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about a true freshman that is really standing out on defense for Syracuse. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. College football is back, and the Locked On College Football Podcast kicks off the action with a live season preview at 7 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, August 20th, on the Locked On College 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. This four-part series covers each of the four major conferences with discussion on which ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC teams have a shot at the expanded college football playoff. And guys, I'm in the Locked On ACC preview segment 2, talking about the dark horses within the conference. Spoiler alert, I think Syracuse is a dark horse in the ACC. The country is going to find out, right? Be sure to check out this special streaming on Locked On College's 24/7 YouTube channel or on Amazon Fire TV, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Let's now go over a true freshman that is a standout, a surprise, whatever the term you want to use. He is turning heads at Syracuse fall camp. And now I'm talking about Marcellus Barnes, a 5'11", 165-pound corner from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now, he's a true freshman, but this is a really, really good true freshman. He is a 24/7 Sports composite 4-star recruit and a top 30 cornerback in the country. That's right, a top 30 cornerback in the country. You can make an argument that Marcellus Barnes is the best recruit that Syracuse football brought in 2024. Now, I've talked about him a bit on the podcast. And really what I have said is kind of with like what I said with Jakari Williams. I'm kind of hesitant with true freshmen, usually. Some of them I'm not, like Yassine Willis on offense, the running back. He's going to play a big role next season. His size is already ready for the college level. But most of the time, true freshmen are not seeing significant playing time in their true freshman seasons. Typically, they actually redshirt. And that goes for even the best recruits in the country. Think about a guy like Marvin Harrison at Ohio State. He barely played in his freshman season. Go look it up. Barely played. He was behind all those studs at Ohio State, right? Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, was there too. You get the point. A lot of even the best recruits will redshirt in their true freshman seasons. But when it comes to Marcellus Barnes, that might not be the case. Defensive backs coach Joe Schaefer has said that Barnes is extremely mature and he conducts himself like an upperclassman, which is good news to hear because these are kids coming in. They're kids. They're 18 years old. It wasn't that long ago when I was a kid going into college, 18 years old. It's different. And I wasn't playing football. These guys are playing Division I football. It's different than high school. So the fact that he's conducting himself maturely is a really, really positive sign. And Emily Liker has also said that Barnes may be the true freshman of this class that sees the most playing time. And that includes guys like Yassine Willis, Jakari Williams, Jamie Tremble, all those guys, Caden Brown, right? It might, in fact, be Marcellus Barnes of all the true freshmen that sees the most playing time. And what's really encouraging about this, that he is having such a good fall camp, is that the three other main corners on the roster are Jayden Bellamy, who we talked about a good bit on last week's podcast, I think talking about breakouts and how he was pretty good in a limited sample, right? He's in competition with Jayden Bellamy. He's in competition with Devin Grant, in competition with Clarence Lewis. Now, to give you a brief rundown on all three of those guys, I already told you about Jayden Bellamy, how he's had a pretty good sample last year, right? Over a 70 PFF grade in 7 starts. That's solid for a cornerback. Devin Grant was all MAC last season at Buffalo. I know it's the MAC conference. It's not the ACC, but he's an all-conference player coming into play for Syracuse. And Clarence Lewis was at Notre Dame and never missed a game. He played 50 career games at Notre Dame in 4 seasons. The fact that a true freshman in Marcellus Barnes is even in competition with these guys speaks volume to his development and the fact that he is just light years ahead of where most true freshmen really are. Most true freshmen are not really competing for starting jobs in their true freshman years. But Marcellus Barnes, he certainly appears to be doing that. And if he earns one of the top 2 cornerback spots on this team, think about how deep the unit becomes. Because like I said, Clarence Lewis was pretty solid at Notre Dame. Devin Grant was all MAC. Jayden Bellamy was pretty good last year for Syracuse. You add in another really good corner, man, that cornerback room has greatly improved. And by the way, it's not completely unprecedented, even for Syracuse. Deuce Chestnut as a true freshman corner, and he was a 3-star prospect, not a 4-star prospect like Marcellus Barnes. In 2021, Deuce Chestnut was 3rd team All-ACC and a freshman All-American. That was in 2021. So this is not uncharted territory for a defensive back to set themselves apart in fall camp and take on a premier role right away in college. I really like Marcellus Barnes based on what I'm hearing, based on what I'm reading. If this kid really is one of the top 2 corners of this team, it is not an indictment on the rest of the cornerback room. It really just shows in my mind that Marcellus Barnes is more ready than most true freshmen would be, and that this cornerback room is incredibly deep. These surprises are positive for Syracuse. They are good surprises. There could be bad surprises too, but these are good ones. Michael Johnson Jr., who we already talked about, and Marcellus Barnes. We'll keep an eye on all of that as fall camp goes. Now coming up, this player in Zeed Haynes, is he really that much of a surprise? I don't know, but let's talk about him. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And if you're itching for Syracuse football like I am, which is 12 days away, Syracuse on FanDuel is a 17.5-point favorite to get the W. You think Syracuse can cover? Well, of course, you can bet it right now on FanDuel. And if you want to play it safer, Syracuse's money line is -950. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. So Michael Johnson Jr. and Marcellus Barnes, they are surprises. I'm genuinely surprised that Michael Johnson Jr. has a chance or even has a leg up on the quarterback 2 competition. And Marcellus Barnes, as a true freshman, being one of the best cornerbacks already in the room, is a pleasant surprise. And I think this defensive backs room is only getting better with his development. Now, Zeed Haynes is not necessarily a surprise because I've called him a potential breakout candidate. I've called him a potential sleeper for all ACC, but I want to talk about him a little bit more. All right. Because I think he's actually going to be the wide receiver 1 on this team. I really do. I'm not saying number one weapon. That's a pun with Michael Johnson Jr. Now that I'm realizing it, but you get the idea. He's not going to be the number one weapon in terms of starters. That's going to be Oronde Gadsden. All right, he should lead the team in receptions, and LaQuinn Allen out of the backfield is another safe bet for being the most prolific weapon on the offense. But with Zeed Haynes, a 6'1", 170-pound receiver and a 3-star transfer from Georgia, he's gotten rave reviews from fall camp. Defensive lineman Dion Wilson, a transfer from New Mexico State, he was asked about the best players on Syracuse's offense, and he gave 2 names. Kyle McCord. All right, well, we expect that Kyle McCord's going to be really good. And the second one was Zeed Haynes. That one is a little bit surprising. So there's the surprise factor for you all. The fact that he has been the second best player, is that a bad thing? I don't think so. We know how good Oronde Gadsden is. We know how good everyone else is on that team. But the fact that he's the second best, maybe, according to at least Dion Wilson, that's good. I like that. This offense is really shaping out to be better. Now, Zeed Haynes, we know he's got talent. For those that may not know, he was a former 4-star prospect at Georgia. Now, he only spent 1 season at Georgia as a redshirt. He only caught 1 career pass, and that went for 20 yards, full disclosure. But again, 1 pass caught last season as a true freshman. But like I said throughout this whole show, true freshmen don't typically contribute in year 1. That's why it's surprising that Marcellus Barnes actually might be a starting corner for this team. So when he transferred over to Syracuse, I understand how he was dinged a little for not contributing, that he was a 3-star transfer, but he was a really upper-end 3-star transfer from Georgia, a former 4-star recruit. Honestly, he probably should have been considered a 4-star transfer. He had a good spring game. He had 6 catches, over 70 yards, and a 38-yard touchdown to go along with it. By all accounts and what I have seen from Zeed Haynes, this guy's a burner. He's a burner. Now, what does that mean? It means he can stretch the field. What's so valuable about burners and why it's really encouraging that Zeed Haynes is looking really good in fall camp, when they stretch the field, it causes defensive backs to move back, opening up underneath for guys like Jackson Meeks and Oronde Gadsden and Dan Villari and Justice Ross Simmons. Keep your eye on him, the transfer from Colorado State. Also, because you have to move your safeties back, maybe it opens up the running game a little bit too, or it opens up the screen game a little bit. The point being is that burners are really, really valuable. It's also why oftentimes, full disclosure, burners can sometimes get overdrafted in the NFL draft because everyone's looking for the next Tyreek Hill. In fact, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. When an NFL team is typically scouting, they're looking for 2 prototypes of wide receivers. They're looking for a burner like a Tyreek Hill, or they're looking for a physical freak like a Calvin Johnson. The analogy I like to use is that NFL teams, when they're scouting, are typically not looking for the next Amon-Ra St. Brown prototype player, the underneath receiver. That's typically not what they're shooting for. They want the guy who's going to burn the defense, take the top off the defense, open up underneath, and they also want the physical freak. Now, Zeed Haynes, what makes him valuable is the fact that he might actually be good on top of his speed. That's what's important. That's why oftentimes they get overdrafted, because they're actually not good. They're just really fast. With Zeed Haynes, I think this guy's actually good. I think he is. I don't think he's going to lead the team in targets. That's going to go to Oronde Gadsden. He's got an outside chance at leading the team in yards, but again, I think that's going to be Gadsden. But I think he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver. He's going to lead all the Syracuse football receivers in receiving yards. If you think that's a bold take, well, let me know in the comment section below. I think Zeed Haynes is the wide receiver 1 on this team because not only is he a burner, he's actually someone who's good. I'm really blunt. I'm just a blunt person. He's actually good. Some players, they're burners. They're not good. I think Zeed Haynes is actually a pretty good wide receiver on top of having tremendous speed. So the fact that he's looking good in fall camp, the fact that Dion Wilson is saying that this guy is one of the 2 best players on the offense alongside Kyle McCord is really, really encouraging stuff for this team. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football Podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description below, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. So that about does it for the three players who are surprising, three players who are standing out at fall camp for Syracuse football. Once again, Michael Johnson Jr. potentially being the backup quarterback for this team this upcoming season. He would beat out Carlos Del Rio Wilson and Jakari Williams, maybe even be the quarterback one in 2025. Also true freshman Marcellus Barnes turning heads as well, the cornerback, 4-star recruit. As a true freshman, the fact that he's actually in the race speaks volumes, and he may end up even winning the race as one of the two top corners on the team. And Zeed Haynes, I've said it before on the podcast. You know my opinion on him by now. He's a really, really talented wide receiver. I was really happy when they got this kid in the transfer portal. The fact that Dion Wilson, the transfer from New Mexico State on the defensive line for Syracuse, is saying that Zeed Haynes is one of the two best players on offense alongside Kyle McCord is really good stuff. It just is. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And fellas, ladies, gentlemen, we're 12 days away from Syracuse football season. And man, I'm excited for it.